for dialing in the delay. Let's go ahead and get started. And again, questions anytime. Again, we want you to weigh in on what we're doing here. And again, this is troubleshooting. So the way this is going to work is we're going to pose a scenario to our panelists and ask them how would they immediately respond. And so you can be thinking about this as well. What would be your immediate response to this issue? And then what would be your measured response to this issue? And a lot of times they're not the same thing. And so we want you to be thinking about that in this process, is understanding what the immediate response is and what the measured response is. And then we're also going to talk about what are the causes of this? What steps do you take? And you know, we really need to be focusing on, hey, why is this important? Well, it's important because it may have an impact on performance. And so that's what we want to try to address. So in addition to that, we want to pose the question to our panelists and Chuck, and is this something you can fix on the fly? Or is this something that's going to require a temporary shutdown, which means, hey, stop the plant, stop loading, let's sort this out? Or is this one of those things is, hey, cut a joint, let's just go home and try it tomorrow. We have, this is just too big of an issue to deal with. So I'd like us to see if we can work that in as well on these issues. Is this a fix on the fly, temporary shutdown, or is this a full shutdown as well? So here's the questions, and we're going to come back to these. So I'm just going to show them briefly. We've got 8. We're going to see if we can get through 8 today. We got through 6, I believe, last week. I don't know if we'll get through 8 today, but we're going to give it a shot. So let's go ahead and get started. Is roadway mixed temperature is running low. So this is not ambient. This is the mixed temperature on the roadway is running low. Al, I'm going to pick on you first, since you are the what did I call him before? The invisible man today. What's the first thing that runs through your head when you see or you hear, hey, the mix on the roadway, the temperature's running low? What's the first thing that you respond to?
Well, my first response would be, I need to check the mixed temperature at the plant. Start from the beginning and work your way back out to the field to try to narrow that down.
Okay. Good. David, Madden, what would you do?
Well, if the plant is infrared is in fact giving correct answers, we would double check that with a minimum of a fluke infrared camera. When you're dealing with temperatures, the cheap old Walmart version doesn't work. You need to purchase very sophisticated infrared cameras or infrared temperature thermometers. I recommend flukes or FLIRs only.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that's a good, and we talked about that last week, about double checking that thermocouple. Robert Gaylord, what would you do?
My immediate response would be to call the plant also and verify their discharge temperature.
Okay.
And check the temperature in the trucks and see how much we're losing on the way out.
So you're going to check, you're going to start multiple trucks now. We want to be on this, all over this right now. Okay.
All right.
And Mr. Teal, what would you do? You're going to send everybody home?
I would ask the 1B to get behind the paver and check it behind the paver.
Okay.
And keep an eye on his densities. You might have to change his rolling pattern if we do have cold loads coming in.
Good. That's very good, guys. That's very good. Is this a fix on the fly deal, or is this a temporary shutdown right now? Or what would you do? Anybody?
Temporary shutdown.
Temporary. Al?
I would try to work through it. I would not shut down. To me, you need to run in order to figure it out. Give yourself that time that you need to really assess the situation and get it figured out.
Okay. Mr. Tell.
I'll tell you what the 1B has behind the paver. If he could tell me he can get his density, he don't know where that cord's going to fill. If he can't get his density, him and his superintendent need to make a call. We need to stop this, figure out what's wrong, because that cord might fall there and that whole sublot will be removed and replaced.
Gotcha. Who did I miss?
Mr.
Chuck?
Gaylord.
Robert.
I try to fix it on the fly,
okay.
and do density checks also. If we're not achieving density, then we'd have to shut down.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer. So let me ask you all, what's the impact on performance if we have low temperature and we don't do something with it?
You're gonna get back to a remove, replace, low density situation David Till was discussing just moments earlier.
Yeah.
1B guy is absolutely the most important person on the crew at this point, giving feedback to the superintendent.
Yeah, David, you hit it. You're right.
Yep.
David Till, you hit it right on the head. Good deal. All right, what did we miss?
So is it a one-off or is it systemic? I always look at the fact that, did I get a belly dump or a truck that didn't have correct tarping, or they didn't put it on top, or maybe they didn't have the wind flap if you're talking about a belly dump at the bottom? Do I have 3 trucks in a row that are 25 degrees off, or is it just one?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of decision that you make, whether you fix it on the fly or whether or not, you're going to have a temporary shutdown. If I got 3, then, we need to do something.
You got a trend.
You got a trend.
Yeah.
And this is going to be for almost all the answers. If we do have a cold load and we know that we're going to have issues getting densities, what else can we do with that load? That's one of the things that I'm a firm believer on is, do we have a crossover? Do we have a driveway? Do we have a detour? Do we have another place that we can place it that might not be in the main lanes? And think about that before you start your paving process. Think about that before the project even starts. What do we do if we get caught in the rain, get a cold load? Where can we place it to where we don't, get penalized, for that issue? But you're right, David Till, if you can't get density, you might as well stop. You cut the joint, make the joint, do a temporary shutdown or whatever it needs to happen. But what do you do with that material afterwards? And that's some of the questions like David Madden, what would you do with that material that's in front of your paver? If you do have a couple of cold loads.
Unfortunately, if it's already in front of the paver and it's belly dump, you're fixing to lay it, but you're gonna get that 1B snubbed right up there with you. You're gonna take that rolling pattern and you're gonna give that the utmost effort.
Yeah.
Right.
You're going to be really tight on that. And I think the communication here is a real key thing. So if the dump guy, if he's the guy taking the temperatures and he sees something,
he needs
to say something, and he needs to let that 1B know right away. Everybody needs to know, hey, let's get through this. Let's check the other trucks, just like Robert said, and then let's go. Okay. All right. Very good, guys. Very good for the first one. Let's move on to the second one. All right. Second question is, the temperature or the texture looks randomly segregated. And I say this particularly vague because segregation to the eye is very eye sensitive, right? And so what would you do? David Till.
What would I do? I would look at the dumper and see whether we got interload segregations, whether we're overlapping them, whether we're running the hopper low, augers, what height are they?
Mm-hmm.
Are they running constantly? These are places to start up front. It's going to show up in the back.
Good deal. Good deal. Robert.
I would check the plant loading procedure to see if we're doing multiple drops.
That can, people get busy. Sometimes they forget about that, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Al.
Yeah, I would look at the dump man and whether he's sequencing those out properly, and then also the loading sequence of the truck.
Okay.
And on the stretch, you would be looking at maybe the batcher and the silo. Maybe we're getting some segregation in that silo.
Okay.
But I would go from there.
Okay. And Mr. Madden.
Well, let's just assume the mix showed up correctly. We always run shuttle buggies, whether we're belly dumping or end dumping. But a belly dump, if they're running the C2 hopper of the belly dump out in between loads, they'll segregate the mix there, depending on how big your insert hopper is. And if you're laying a B as in boy mix, big rocks rolling to the outside and David Till's correct about auger height. Are they running augers out, or the augers too high, whereas the augers are beating or whipping the rocks loose?
Yeah, I've seen them. They generally ought to be rolling, 1 to 2 revolutions per minute. They shouldn't be, or 30 revolutions per minute. I'm sorry. They shouldn't be throwing stones at you. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Is this a, is this a fix on the fly? Is this a temporary, or this is a full shutdown? What do you guys think? Let me go back to David Till.
Well, if you had segregation behind you, your 1B is going to be running segregation profiles. And if he fails 2 of them in a row, it's automatically shut down.
Okay.
And you go to area engineer, determine once you figure the problem out, talk to him about it, then you start back up.
Gotcha. Robert?
I would try to make some adjustments in the field, and if we can't make it work, then we're gonna shut down.
Gotcha. David?
Fix on the fly, check all my dump procedures first. We're still having segregation, then temporary shutdown.
David, you were telling me the other day when we were talking a little bit about how you handle your hopper insert. Do you want to describe that and why you did that?
Well, many years ago, Dr. Brock, when he invented the shuttle buggy, he instructed all of us to build 20-ton paver hopper inserts. And again, if you're laying a mix, which has been taken out of the spec, or a B mix, if those hopper heights are varying, the big rocks will roll to the outside, creating segregation within a paver insert hopper.
Okay.
We have since cut all our hoppers down that we basically have a 5-foot diameter barrel for an insert hopper, which is, if you think about it, it is an open, it is a complete open asphalt batcher on top of the silo.
Gotcha.
It can't segregate.
It's just flowing straight down.
Straight down.
Good deal. Yeah, and I've been keeping your hopper levels in the MTV and in your paver about the same. That's very important as well. Al, what would you do? Any other comments on you, Al?
I would just say that, segregation is very subjective, and it's a tough one, but you can look at all of those different things that cause it and try to remedy it. But I would not, it would be fixed on the fly unless you could not get it resolved, and then you would obviously need to shut down.
Okay, good deal.
Yeah.
Good deal.
That's
Hey, guys online, Chuck, give me just a second. Guys online, if you've got a fix, go ahead and submit it in. Let's hear what it is. Go ahead, Chuck.
Now, the thing about, and Al's right, and so is David Madden, is that you have to be moving to fix segregation. You can't stop. You can't stopping. It's not going to fix segregation. You have to kind of be moving to figure out what's going on and to look at it. Just from an experience standpoint, because we used pavers, on city streets, and then we used them in subdivisions, and then we used them on heavy highway. We'd get a paver to the heavy highway, and we'd have a segregation issue, and the guys are sitting there just be fighting segregation, can't figure it out. Well, come to find out, the dang thing had hit a manhole, the screed plate had hit a manhole. Robert Gaylord, you probably had the same thing, and it makes a gouge in your dang screed plate, or you got a tore in your, and then that creates this segregation. My guys, when they start saying we can't figure out what's going on, I said raise the screed up, look underneath it, and I guarantee you the guy hit a manhole, or we got gouged, or we did something while we were loading the paver or unloading the paver, and you need to take a look at that too.
Yeah, I've seen where they switched aggregate to a soft material, from a soft material to hard material, and they didn't realize it, and they just plumb wore the screed out.
Yeah.
There's a hole in the bottom of it. So, all these things are really, really good answers. Closing comments on this one. Anybody?
The main thing that'll cause segregation at an asphalt plant, if it's coming in the truck, it's typically the batchers on top of the silos. One of your air cylinders has come off, or a gate is stuck open and the mix is free falling. continuously, and it'll blow it all apart.
Exactly right.
Yep. Loading out of the cone will do it as well. If you guys get too much of a hurry and they load out of the bottom of it, that can also be an issue. Good comments, guys. Real good comments. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right. Near and dear to my heart and near and dear to my backside is the ride feels irregular. So I'm assuming that maybe we've probably got a day or two production down and we've driven it and it just doesn't feel right. So what's the first thing we're going to look at, Mr. Madden?
Well, is the road, is it a milled surface we're laying on, or are we laying on existing surface?
Yes.
If it's a milled surface and if it's a milled surface and the ride feels irregular, we're fanatics about, we typically run dual skis, sonic skis on
Okay.
each side of the paver. And once every 2 weeks, we basically, let's put the paver up on block and we field calibrate the sonic
wow.
skis through the paver to make sure we are dialed in so we don't have a corduroy effect, because lots of screed operators have fat fingers, and if they get into some sub menus, they're not going to tell the superintendent.
Okay.
I think that messed up my calibration.
Or start changing with the sensitivity values as well. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Al, what would you do?
I would look at our rolling pattern and make sure that, you know, we're being consistent in the way that we're rolling the mat, rolling from the bottom up, you know, keeping those joints tight, and use a straight edge on those joints.
Good point. Do you teach your guys to stop on an angle?
Oh yeah, 45.
Yep, 45 as they reverse. Good deal. Robert Gaylord.
Well, I would first want to determine what we're feeling out there. If it's ripples or chatter, then we would do some adjustments at the paver. Be sure that the augers the head of materials are good. The augers are set the right height, and then determine if that's the problem.
Okay, good. And David Till.
I will watch the breakdown road, make sure he is stopping at a 45, because I've seen him many a times. He's not, and you'll never get that out of there. And it's consistent. About every 150 feet or so, you would have that same bump in there. The other thing I've seen was the sensitivity on your toe point. Seen ripples in there when I walked up and looked, and toe point was moving up and down quite frequently.
Yeah, if it's just sitting there, if it's sitting still and just kind of shaking, we need to make an adjustment. That's a really good point, David. All right, to everybody, Chuck, anything?
No, I'm going to get into the meat of it here in a second.
Temporary shutdown or fix on the fly, temporary or full shutdown. Robert.
Fix on the fly. I would try to fix on the fly.
Okay. David Madden.
You have to be paving to fix it, and I say fix on the fly unless it is mechanical, and at that point temporary.
Okay. Al?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's fixed on the fly, but if it has to do with the screed and the electronics, it could be a temporary shutdown.
Okay. Mr. Till.
Same thing, you know, if it's sensitivity or the skis, yes, shut down till they get it repaired and then pick back up.
Good deal. Chuck?
My deal is to identify it as fast as possible. I can't tell you how many times I've been on a pavement evaluation project or any project, and it's systemic throughout the whole project. And whether their vibes are incorrect, or their impacts are incorrect, their amplitude's incorrect, or what have you, or they have a issue with their contacts, whether they're using, you know, some people still use the string contact. A lot of people still out there use that, some don't. But my deal is identify it early, and that's what you do during the debrief, daily debrief. Your paving superintendent needs to get with that inspector, whoever's representing TxDOT, and they need to drive that project at the end of the shift or the beginning of the shift and figure out if there is an issue, and let's address it immediately. Because all you guys are right. You have to be moving to do it, but by golly, we need to identify it early. It should not be all 11 miles of it. And that's what I'm seeing right now, is that we're not doing our daily debriefs, and we're not finding it out until at the end of the project when we're running the IRI. When we're running the IRI, it's too late. Guys. Let's catch it the very first day and figure it out the very first day.
That's a great analogy. Great analogy. All right. All right. Let's move on to the next one. Let's see. Where did it go? There it is. And there it is. Your field density is variable and on the low side, but I'm going to say it's still in spec. But it's definitely on the low side. So what are you guys going to do? We'll start with David Till.
I'm gonna get with the 1B. I get my lab reports and I see low densities. I'm gonna get with him and see where his gauge is versus what we actually found from the lab reports.
Okay.
And maybe he needs to recalibrate his gauge, pull some more reference cores, get his gauge tuned in.
Good. I want to come back to reference cores. Al.
Yeah, I mean, we use reference cores. I mean, it's a must. I would look at my thickness of the mat, and I would check back with the plant to make sure that everything's running good. We've got plenty of oil in it. Gradation's not out of whack, and then we go from there.
Okay. Mr. Madden.
First thing we do on the JMF, let's just say it's a 2.470 rice gravity. We text that information on every sublot back to the paver superintendent and the 1B.
Great idea.
Daily.
Great idea.
And if the lab molded is moving up or down, or if the rice gravity moves plus or minus 15 thousandths, that's an immediate. We got to get back with our gauge and our 1B, and odds are, let's say the rice gravity moved up, then we're starving our mix for oil. And we're going to go to attacking it first with trying to put another tenth of AC to get that density up.
Gotcha. Good point. Robert.
I would check with the roller, see if the roller operator's still running the same rolling pattern we established before, and to see if he's sticking with that.
Yep.
And then check the mat temperature, see if he's rolling at the right temperature.
That's great. The thing that we've noticed here in the last 36 hours is the temperature has dropped to 25 to 30 degrees, and we know for certain that's going to make a huge difference on the rolling pattern. So making sure the 1Bs and everybody on the job site know when that weather starts to change, it goes from sunny to cloudy. It goes from cold to hot or hot to cold, beginning of shift to end of shift, or end of shift, beginning of the shift. We need to be making those changes as well. Chuck, your comment?
I'm going to get into the meat of things here in a second.
All right. Okay. So where are we? Are we a fix on the fly? We temporary shutdown, full shutdown? David Till.
They fix on the fly.
All right. Al.
Yep, fix on the fly.
Okay. David.
Fix on the fly.
Robert.
Fix on the fly.
Chuck's going to shut us all down.
No, I agree with that. I love the fact that David Madden has parameters set up in place.
Absolutely.
And he's looking at these things, or his 1A and 1B are looking and communicating. And I can't stress enough that control charts at the asphalt plant and on the roadway are going to help you be able to make that determination. You'll be able to know if your material's changing and behind the asphalt plant by keeping up with those gradation charts and your rice gravity charts and your density charts. Know the answer before the question is asked. You should be able to monitor that. And David, you have it perfect. I mean, you got it set up perfect with your answer. Hey, at 15 thousandths off, we know we're going to have a change. We know we need to be doing something. You know the answer before the question's even asked. And you never get yourself in a position where you're going to be in a remove and replace with these charts. I'm telling you, the more we utilize these charts, not only with gradation, moisture, specific gravities, we know what's going in the plant, we'll be able to make a change before we get into a penalty or a remove and replace. And again, it goes back to the daily debriefs. And I'm really happy that your 1As and your 1Bs are speaking 4 times a day. 4 times a day, every sublot. They need to be communicating every sublot.
Absolutely
So
best
that's
practice.
a big deal. And
Yeah.
that's my meat of the subject for that.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely best practice. All right, great guys. All right, let's move on. There it is. Here we go. The mix appears tender. It's moving and cracking underneath the rollers. So this is we've laid the mix. Mix apparently is okay on temperature, but now the mix is cracking and it's moving. We've got this tender situation. So let's start with Robert. What would you do, Robert?
My first step would be call the 1A at the plant and see how the mix is looking, and then see if the mix isn't too hot.
Okay.
Normally, that's going to give you that problem.
All right.
Excessive batt temperature.
All right. David Madden.
I'm gonna call the 1A, and this is the normal answer I get. Everything's right down the middle at the plant, and I can make 0 adjustment. What I typically, if I'm personally on the job, from experience, if it's moving and shoving and cracking, I need more rock in that mix to stiffen it up.
Okay.
A lab guy can move 3% as a general rule, plus or minus, from coarse aggregates to screening, and instantly toughen that mix back up. But he must instantly also run a new rice gravity as that change comes through, and get run a new lab molding. But when a lab guy tells you at the plant, I can't do anything, he's got to help you. He cannot not do it. And David Teal's grinning because he's been at the plant and told somebody, I can't move. Go ahead, David.
I've heard it before, but you see the issue, you call the plant, we're within specs. So, but the Texas gives a range on that spec, tighten it up one way or the other.
Yeah. Al, what would you do? Or did I get covered? Go ahead.
I would start out looking at the rolling pattern and looking at those temperatures that we're compacting at to see if maybe we've got something going on with the mix and the oil. And we're just rolling in that wrong temperature zone.
Really?
And then again, I would agree that if the mix is tender because of the mix, then that goes back to the plant. We need to get some more rock in there.
Mm-hmm. That's a really, really good statement there, is monitor the rolling pattern, including the temperatures. And absolutely, we got to be doing that.
Yeah.
Do you want to weigh in, Chuck?
I'll weigh in a second.
All right. Is this a fix on the fly, temporary, or full shutdown? We'll go back to Robert.
I'd fix on the fly.
Okay. Mr. Madden.
Fix on the fly.
Al.
Fix on the fly.
Mr. Till.
Fix it on the fly.
And Mr. Fuller.
Well, I go back when we start having tender mixes, you look at temperatures and all that kind of stuff, but sometimes we create our own problems, especially if we have an undersill. You get the rock too heavy on that undersill, and it just acts like a Marlboro, ball bearing, and the dang mat starts moving on you. And our guys are out there, pulling their hair out, and I'm thinking, well, heck, look at what we're laying on. Look at the rock rate. You got the rock rate way too high. And with these new specialty tack coats, there's 8 or 10 of them out there. I know everybody has their little specialty that they like to use, but some of these things need to break, and we're getting on them too quick. And what it does is it looks like the mat's moving, and we're in actuality it's slipping, and it's slipping because that tack material hasn't broke yet. I don't know if you guys have had any issues with that. David, Madden, do you guys have any issues with the less tracking tack and not breaking all the way and it's slipping on you or sliding on you?
We have not had an issue with the tack causing slippage. I have been reading some literature lately that laying on wet tack, or let's say we're using spray paver interlayer, when that asphalt actually is hitting that wet tack, you're actually foaming that asphalt to some degree right there at that interface.
Okay.
So, but we've not had any slippage issues related to tack as you're describing.
Okay.
So David Till, on your under seals, have you seen where we've used too much rock and it just becomes, to where it's unstable?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've had where we have a rock rate, say 1 to 125 or 1 to 120 on the under seal, and they'll put so thick, like you said, it's almost an inch thick at times. And the superintendent, well, I don't want it picking up on my tires. So we ain't going to have it. We're sweeping it. And then they sweep it off the road where you get that salt and pepper look. You got bondage there to your under seal.
Gotcha.
But that can create this tender mix sometimes that they talk about. So when your lab guy, your 1A goes, everything's right down the middle, everything's perfect. Sometimes he might be right, and it could be some stuff that we're doing out on the roadway that we need to pay attention to. And again, that rock rate is so important.
Good deal. All right, we cover this one.
For me, I have.
All right, Chuck's covered it. We're ready to move on. All right, so the next question is: the mixed place yesterday is slipping. The mixed place yesterday is showing signs of slipping under traffic. All right. Let's go back to Al. I think we've made it around the horn, and ask him what he would do.
Well, we really got to look at that tax situation, and maybe our rate's too low, or maybe we didn't clean the surface well enough if it's a milled surface. Again, sometimes if you're at an intersection and you've got heavy loads that are stopping, sometimes you need to adjust your tack rates in those areas.
Okay. All right, Mr. Madden.
Yeah, slippage, main thing I'm worried about is a not clean surface.
Okay.
And you have micro fine dust out there, and dust is the biggest enemy I see.
Okay.
Tack coat is number 2. You got to have tack coat. Glue is the cheapest thing we own.
Okay.
Or we give to Texas.
There we go. David Till.
Well, if right now with these new specs, we're paying for the tack. I've always said that for years. We need to be paying for it. We'll get what we want. There's many a times we would get out 0.03, and we would always have issues at the intersection. We were not getting enough tack down there. And then when Construction Division came out with that pamphlet and said you need a 0.06 residual, and we started forcing them to do that, you didn't have any issues at the intersections. And like you're saying, if it's a mill and inlay, you're never going to get all that fine dust out of there. So whenever you put your tack down, and what type of tack it is, when that truck pulls up on it, what does it do? It rolls it all up. And then you don't have any tack at all.
Yep. Robert.
We do a lot of hot applied membrane applications, and at times we have problems with it picking up on the truck tires, the MTV tires, the rubber tires. So we try to run a little water spray on our MTV and to keep that from picking up and leaving a bare spot.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I saw it on one job where it was running, and everything was fine. And then later on, it wasn't, and it just started to pick right up.
Yeah.
So it's that little water spray on those big tires is a really good idea. Okay, is this a temporary shutdown, a fix on the fly, or a full shutdown? Let's go back to David. I think it was David Till.
I'm going to say fix on the fly because they don't have enough tack out there. I had one distributor operator. I told him I need a 0.08. He shot it 4 times before he got his 0.08 out there. And then the next time we took off, he got it in 1 pass.
There we go. Al.
Yeah, it's going to be a fix on the fly. You can't, you can address the problem immediately. So it's fix on the fly.
Okay, Mr. Madden.
I agree with Al. It is immediate fix. Fix it on the fly. Get the rate up.
Good deal. Robert, did I ask you yet? We've been going around. I'm losing track where I'm at.
I agree, fix on the fly. We can usually figure it out, make it work.
Okay, and Chuck.
So I've seen it to where we've actually used too much tack. And some of these intersections, so this is a overlay with a tom mix. Distributor comes up to the intersection and stops, right? Because we're going to wait until the traffic control guys get up there, and we're going to go through all in one spot, right? One deal. And the distributor's doing what while it's sitting there? It's leaking, you know. And then it's just this pile of material that's right in front of the intersection. And we laid through the intersection. The next night we came back and we looked, and that material had shoved through that intersection, and we couldn't figure it out until we cut that material out and found out that we had 8 times too much tack versus not enough tack. And so, yeah, too much is just as bad as not enough. But that was one of the things that we learned is either A, we need a new distributor, or B, we need to pull it off to the side before we go through the intersection. But it was a mess there for a while. It took us 2 intersections to figure it out, by the way. So
and that can be, I mean, that's a big performance thing right there.
Absolutely.
Good deal. All right. Go ahead.
Can I add something to that?
Please.
If your inspector's watching, he'll see them puddles out there, and take the sweeper, square it up, and broom it out, spread it out.
And that's, David Till, you got it exactly right. If somebody's watching, whether it's the inspector or somebody else, that's exactly right. And we need that. We need that. We need those eyes and ears. And as Jim has always said, you see something, you say something.
Yep.
And that's so important. It really is.
Perfect. Great.
Jim,
Yes, sir.
I know we got one more topic, but
Go ahead.
I did a tack coat study with Miles Garrison at Material and Test.
Okay.
I'm gonna say 2 years ago. We were talking about dusty milled surface, that we were shooting all kind of trail tacks for Miles
Okay.
because we were worried about it picking up on truck tires, as David Till is describing, which we have all seen. I asked Miles, I said, let me do something that is completely against the grain. I said, I want to shoot a 0.60 rate, but I want to cut the tack coat with 50% water. And so instead of having a residual of about 0.03 asphalt, we had a residual about 1.8 residual AC. So all conventional wisdom says this doesn't work, but we cut the cores, sent them to Material and Test. They ran the shear test, and the cores ran 90 to 127 PSI on shear.
Wow.
What we decided was that because the tack was so wet that it did not adhere to the tires as glue, it simply ran off as water, as you just have water on your tires going down the highway.
Oh, okay. Interesting. That's
the best shear results they've had was cut 50-50.
Well,
you can believe that.
Well, hey, as I was telling somebody the other day, it's like, man, I learn stuff every day in this business. You know, chalk another one up to ingenuity. All right, good deal. All right, let me go. One more. This is the mix yield is running low. It's running about 10 pounds low for whatever your target rate is. And let's say we're laying 1.5 inches. And so we're, 150, 160 pounds. And say we're 10 pounds low. So what are you guys going to do about that? Let's start with Mr. Madden. David, what would you do?
Well, the first thing to do is check the corner depth that the screed operator is using to check his mat thickness.
Okay, sure, absolutely.
A simple 1/8 of an inch is typically 13.7 pounds in mat density or mat poundage per square yard.
Okay.
Wow.
Good. Very good. David Till.
Well, generally, it's usually the other way around. When you're running your heels, it's always running high instead of running low. And running high, that thickness on that washer, when you got a back end guy, you're running a 2-inch compacted, so you're going to run 2.5 uncompacted. When he's sticking it, he wants to see that washer stuck in there. So there's your other 1/8 of an inch. The other, I'm always on the high side trying to get him to bring it down. So what we do, we'll set the stick at 2 3/8. And when he sticks it, who's top of that washer, we got our 2.5 on
It's
compaction.
flush to the top. Okay, really,
Yes.
that's a good observation.
Yeah, I very seldom ever see running low. As an inspector, I'm usually always seeing it onto the high side, trying to get them to bring it back down. We don't
Okay.
get to overrun.
But I know you're a stickler about checking yield, so you're not one to not
I do every,
check yield.
yes, we run every sublot.
So we need to be checking the yield, be checking stuff. Again, this goes back to what Chuck's talked about time and time again. If it's off a little, let's fix it now. Let's
Catching it
not
up.
wait, or if it's a little high, a little low, let's not wait till the end of the week, the end of the month to say, guess what? We're running 10% higher, 10% low. If you're running yields all day long, you kind of know where you're at. Robert, go ahead. I'm sorry, I intervened.
I would start looking at my grade controls also after we check the depth check, see if everything's working properly.
Okay.
And I've noticed, I've had experience where we have to run a slope control, and running a slope can get you in trouble, getting way off on your yield.
Yeah,
Sure.
it sure can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Al.
Yeah, yield is tricky business. I mean, if you've got a chip seal surface that you're dealing with, that'll wreak havoc on your yield. If it's a milled surface, if it's rutted, if you have wheel ruts, if you're rolling your mat when it's too cool, you're gonna start spreading that mix out.
Mm-hmm.
So you really got to stay on top of that and check all angles. But I agree, that's something that we absolutely have to stay on top of daily.
Good points. Good points. Is this a fix on the fly, temporary or full shutdown? Robert,
Fix on the fly.
Mr. Madden,
On the fly.
David Till,
Fix it on the fly.
Al,
Fix it on the fly.
Chuck.
Well, I'm gonna fix it on the fly unless David Till doesn't pay me for it. If he says I ain't paying you for it, I'm stopping. I'm gonna figure out. Especially, what do you guys think about this safety wedge? So we got the new safety wedge information, from TxDOT. That's that outside edge.
Yep.
Or when we're running a joint safety edge, where it brings it from 2 inches down to 0 over that 6-inch area. Is that calculated, or do you calculate that, or is it calculated in your plan notes or your plan typicals, I should say? So in other words, do we have a problem with our quantity?
Sure.
Because it wasn't calculated correctly? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely does.
So David Till, I'm asking that because David probably has the most, TxDOT experience with that. When they don't get the wedge in there and they don't get that safety slope in there, and it's not calculated, you're going to be over in your quantity fairly quick.
Well, I'll speak for our area office where I retired out of. That's safe. The 2-foot safety. We required a 2-foot safety slope on the outside of a divided highway. Would have one on the inside and outside, and those were figured in on the quantities. Our design engineers would figure that in. When we're running daily, and we have this 1-foot safety wedge, I'm gonna figure it in on my yields for this day. And this lane here, inside lane, would be additional 6 inches, or 6 inches wider.
Right.
1-foot safety slope.
So you're splitting the difference on that. And
then
just
when you do the outside lane, it should be 6 inches less because you flip that down.
Gotcha. Good points. Yeah, it should be. I mean, at least some numbers I've seen is it could be 1 or 2% of the quantity difference if you don't adjust for it. And we did ask that during the short course because that came up. That presentation came up during the short course, and we did ask and got a couple of different answers. But in general, it ought to be calculated in because it's part of the structure.
But a lot of times it's not calculated in the typical section in your plan quantity notes or your plan quantity sheets. It's not. So that's one of those things, again, the daily debrief. At the end of the day, like David Till said, he's calculating yield every sublot. But at the end of the day, if we have an issue, whether it's low or high, well, we need to address that and really determine if we do have an issue or if it wasn't originally calculated right. I'm a firm believer that, again, that whole thing about communication at the end of the shift and talking about your densities, your your lane widths, your layouts, and your overruns or underruns. That needs to be talked about every single day.
And just
Well, what y'all need to look at is on the contractor side, those set of plans. Y'all bid them, and if they're telling you they want a 2-foot taper out there, and you're looking at their details, typicals, and it's just showing, say, a 36-foot roadway, and it's not, they don't have that calculated in. That y'all need to address that at the pre-con.
good
When you have
point.
pre-con, bring it up. Y'all quantities don't include this 2-foot safety paper that you're telling me to put in out here.
Good point.
Good point.
And and from a performance standpoint, we're assuming that road needs to be a certain thickness in order to carry the load. If we're under, it's not theoretically going to carry as much load as if it was straight on, even though it's a little bit. It does add up. You could cross-reference your cores you're taking, check your core thicknesses to your yields, make sure you're doing that. But as David Till said, he's normally trying to get them to draw it back a little bit. But it's something we do need to be checking. We do need to be checking yields. Check them early and often and communicate. So closing comments, anybody? Robert, you got anything?
Not right now.
Okay. Mr. Madden.
Asphalt paving is a very fluid, typically 40 to 70 feet per minute operation, and you got to be on your toes, ready to fix it on the fly.
There you go, Mr. Till.
Be open-minded.
Good. That's a good statement, David. Mr. Till.
I love paying bonuses. Let's make that comment in 2010. If I can pay bonus at 5% bonus from the plant and the roadway, I got a good mix out there. It's going to last me a while. If I can pay that $600 for every 528 feet, you got a smooth ride.
Okay, good point. Good point. Al.
Yeah, I think we need to check those yields early and often. I heard that comment, and it's so true. It's going to save you.
Good deal. Good deal. And if anybody out there's got any questions, now's the time because we are closely rappelling on the top of the hour. Chuck, closing comments.
Just again, I said it probably more times than I should, but we need to communicate not only between the 1A, the 1B, but out there in the field, the guys that are building the job, that's paving superintendent and that representative from TXDOT, they need to be communicating, at every sublot, at the end of the shift, at the beginning of the shift, if we're doing good, if we're not, and what we need to be looking at. And start with safety, guys. Start with your signage. Start with your cues. Start with your work zone safety. Make sure that that's correct. And again, I see so many projects that are systemic. The joints go like this for 11 miles. Every single transverse joint will knock the back of your teeth out. I mean, I can understand a bad day. I can understand a bad couple of days. Hey, we're trying to work it out, but I cannot understand a bad 11 miles. I just cannot understand that. And as an industry, all it takes is what David Till says. He likes to pay bonuses. And if you're talking to David Till while he's on your job and we're trying to get this thing built together and partner together to get this award-winning project, you're not only going to get the maximum amount of bonuses, but you got again, that partnering for that award-winning project. And everybody on the line has won awards for that. David Madden and Gaylord and Al, you guys have all won awards, and that's the reason why we picked you to be on this get together. Is that's what we're trying to get across here? Is how do we get award-winning projects? How do we maximize our bonuses? How do we give TXDOT not only what they want, but what the industry needs? And we need that extra 1 or 2 years. We need 12 to 13 years and that life cycle cost analysis to be able to compete against concrete pavement. And I know this is near and dear to David Madden's heart. And I'm telling you right now, we can do it if we just all partner together and work together and communicate.
Good deal. Good deal. Hey, guys, huge thanks to everybody for participating today. Robert, David Madden, David Till, Al, Farrell, Chuck, big thanks to all you guys. Let's see if I can fix this out here. All right. And thank you for participating in our program today. Just a reminder, go to YouTube and text or search for TXAPA and subscribe and like our videos, take a look at our troubleshooting videos. This video will be up probably late today or tomorrow. Please feel free to share it. Really solid, good information in here that everybody needs to know. So please make sure that you share that information. Just a reminder, on Thursday at 2 o'clock, the TXAPA Live program will be a QC QA panel headed by our own Corey Schwartz from the HMAC, and he's looking at a roadmap to success, looking at the laboratory program. So please come back and let's see you on Thursday at 2 o'clock. If you just go to texasasphalt.org and click on TXAPA Live, you'll get the link to that program. So in the meantime, a big thanks to everybody. Thank you for what you do. Let's make sure we are safe out there this week, every week. If you are still paving, please make sure you're talking to your 1Bs and modifying your rolling patterns accordingly, because it's cool out this morning or this afternoon, so we need to be taking care of things. So let's put off PFC and Tom for maybe a week or so till we get some warmer weather, and then go from there. So in the meantime, thank you so much. Be safe out there. God bless, and ever forward, everybody.
Absolutely.